Is it just me, or are we seeing more and more female teachers assaulting students? I swear there's like a new story every other week. I just learned about this 30-year-old teacher that essayed two 15-year-old boys and got pregnant with one of them. This is her. Rebecca Jones was 28 years old when she started working as a math teacher at Manchester High School and began flirting with her 15-year-old student. Apparently, it started off with her playing this weird game with him where she gave him her phone number except for the last digit and told him to figure it out. And of course, he figured it out and they began texting, Snapchatting. Eventually, she took him to the Gucci store to buy him a belt. After buying him this expensive belt, she then took him to her house where she essayed him. This boy's mother noticed a bite mark on his neck the next day, and eventually word got out and Rebecca was arrested. But this is where things get so much worse and tells me that this woman is seriously dangerous. So she was let out on bail, and right away she began talking to another 15-year-old boy, essayed him, and got pregnant. And the craziest part is that she only got 6 years in prison, and it's been said that she most likely will only serve like 3.5. The baby was born last year and was taken away from her. And for anyone that wants to sit here and say that this is not considered essay and that this boy wanted it, you're the problem. Imagine if it was the other way around. Everyone takes it so much more serious.
Creepy things caught on camera. Old lady with a knife seen on a doorbell cam in the middle of the night.
Here are the best Halloween costumes you won't believe exist. This costume looks like a toy RC car, but it's actually a person and can transform into a robot. This is the Demogorgon from Stranger Things and can even open its mouth. This costume was made entirely out of glass. This made it 100% reflective, making you almost invisible. This artist creates 2D costumes and brings them to the 3D world. This genie actually had a flying rug, and this man was driving the Pride Rock from The Lion King. This costume was an Iron Man Hulkbuster suit from the Avengers. It was homemade, 9.5 feet tall, and took him 20 minutes to get in. And finally, the greatest Halloween costume of all time, the Porta Potty.
Blood-curdling facts that will make your skin crawl. Let's go. Only 1/14,000 of an ounce of venom from the Australian brown snake is strong enough to kill a human. Up until 1987, doctors believed that babies couldn't feel any pain, which is why they would operate on them without any anesthesia. If your stomach doesn't produce a new set of mucus every 2 weeks, your body will begin to eat itself from the inside out. Your brain can actually detect when someone is watching you when you're sleeping, which is why sometimes you'll wake up in the middle of the night. Cannibals have said that the most delicious part of the human body is the eyeball. If you learned something, leave a like and maybe even a follow.
Yo, what's up? Here's some scary facts about our world that you probably didn't want to know. Part 45. Egyptian mummies would still be considered one of the rarest artifacts to find up to date, if medieval Europeans hadn't consumed a majority of the dead mummies' bodies, because they believed back then that if you consumed embalmed dead bodies, that it would actually heal your ailments. Please do not try this next one, but it is actually possible that you can convince somebody who has no history of mental illness in their family that they have a severe mental illness in roughly only a week. Please do not try to convince your brother that he has schizophrenia. That would not be a good idea, and it would not end up well. Throughout the filming of The Exorcist, you hear the possessed girl let out multiple demonic screams, but little did you know that those screams weren't humanly possible, and they were actually the sounds of squealing pigs who were being taken to a slaughterhouse. And last but certainly not least, it is said the people who practice the religion of Zoroastrianism actually leave dead bodies up in towers so that vultures can consume their remains. To us it may seem a little strange, but to them it's actually a sign of respect. But when I die, please don't put my body in a tower so I can be eaten by vultures. It's just not my thing.
I discovered the scariest show that Netflix has ever made, and I need to tell you about it. I can't believe I just found out about this show, but even as I was watching it, I couldn't wait to recommend it to you guys. If Weapons, The Haunting of Hill House, and It had a baby, it would be the Netflix horror series Marianne. This is probably the scariest thing I've ever seen on Netflix, aside from Incantation. There's only 8 episodes, but every single one is scary. I couldn't even believe it, because honestly, it's been a minute. This show actually terrified me. It's about an author who became really rich and successful after writing a horror book series about a witch named named Marianne. Then one day at her book signing, she gets a visit from a childhood friend that she hasn't seen in years. And this friend says that her mother needs help. Her mother has been acting unusual. She's convinced that Marianne, the witch from inside the book, is real and possessing her. So the author and her assistant go back to the author's hometown to try to figure out what's going on. So that's how the story begins, but nothing, and I really do mean nothing, is gonna prepare you for what you're about to see. The plot, the pacing, the scares, the visual, literally everything about this show was fabulous and terrifying. If you're looking for something with a very interesting story that will hook you from beginning to end, and specifically if you like the vibe of weapons but kind of wanted something a little bit scarier, Marianne on Netflix, just trust me and press play. I would never steer you wrong. And don't forget to follow for more recommendations.
In 1978, 15-year-old Mary Vincent was hitchhiking through California when 51-year-old Lawrence Singleton offered her a ride, a decision that would lead to one of the most horrific crimes in modern history. After gaining her trust, Singleton bound her with rope, brutally sexually assaulted her for several hours, and hacked off both of her arms with a hatchet before throwing her off a 30-foot cliff to die. But Mary somehow found the strength to try and survive. Naked, pouring blood, and mutilated, she packed mud into her wounds to slow the bleeding, then crawled up the steep mountain and walked for miles down a deserted road, leaving a trail of blood behind her. The first car that saw her sped away in shock, but a honeymooning couple eventually stopped and saved her life, wrapping her in towels and racing her to help. While barely clinging to consciousness, Mary gave police a description so accurate that it led to Singleton's arrest within days. But despite the unimaginable brutality of his crime, Singleton served only 8 years before being released on good behavior. And just over a decade later, he struck again just like Mary said he would. In 1997, police found the body of 31-year-old mother of 3 Roxanne Hayes inside his home, stabbed multiple times and left in a pool of blood, murdered after he lured her inside under false pretenses. Singleton was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death, but died of cancer in prison in 2001 while awaiting execution. Mary survived, learned to live with prosthetic arms, and became an artist and advocate for victims' rights.
And they were both found dead. She must have been out of her head. Oh, 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 oh.
Here it is. There's my favorite perfume we've been looking for.
This woman was kidnapped by her own friend and forced to marry him. 55-year-old Virginia Paris had become friends with 52-year-old Joseph Hetzel. Joseph started to become a little bit too obsessive, so like any cautious person would, Virginia backed off a bit. One day Virginia was leaving her job at a retirement home in Santa Barbara County, California, when a car deliberately cut her off and blocked her. That's when she realized it was Joseph jumping out of the car and jumping in her car, forcing her to drive to Vegas. There he took her to a chapel. He started grabbing her neck, kissing her, and holding on to her tight in the chapel as an act of intimidation. After the wedding, Joseph allowed Virginia to call her family one last time. That's when Virginia took the chance to tell her daughter that she may never see them again. Her daughters became extremely worried. This is where Joseph messed up though. He drove them to the Railroad Pass Casino and told Virginia to purchase the hotel room because he didn't want to be seen on surveillance. That's when Virginia thought of a plan. She went to the front desk and told them to act like they were giving her a room, then told them everything that went down. That's when they called the police. The police came and Joseph went on the run. Joseph then called Virginia's daughter and said this is Joseph. I was chased by the cops and I've taken pills, so it will soon be over. By the time the cops get me, I'll be dead. Cops then called Jason, and in 2017 he was sentenced to 11 years in jail. But was that enough? Because it is 2022 and he only has 5 more years.
I keep seeing these videos, and honestly, it's creeping me out. All over the world, people are finding red balloons, popping up in clusters on random streets. They're in parks. There's even footage near the Santa Monica Pier. Some are tied to sewer gates or benches. There are even reports of people that are dressed like they're straight out of the 60s, just walking around, holding them. And if you're a horror lover, what does a red balloon connect to? That's right, it's back.
Here are 4 images that confused the entire world. This house looks like it's falling over, but it's actually level. This is just how steep some of the hills are in San Francisco. This dog appears to have crazy sharp-like teeth, but it's actually just the fence behind it. You probably thought that these cars were disappearing, right? Well, it's actually not a bridge, it's just a rooftop of a building. And this is the confusing dress. Some people see black and blue, and others see white and gold. Now comment what you see.
This is the smallest
Morbid Facts, Part 785. In 2021, 75-year-old cyclist Dave Richards was hit by a drunk driver in Bristol, England, suffering catastrophic injuries that left him with burns across half his face, a shattered pelvis, and the loss of an eye. For years, he avoided mirrors and crowds, haunted by his own face and the looks of strangers. But in 2025, doctors at the Bristol 3D Medical Center gave him something never performed before. A 3D printed facial prosthesis that perfectly matched his skin tone, hair, and eye color. Using detailed scans of his head, they built a custom silicone replacement that restored the face he'd lost. In June of 2010, 7-year-old Kyron Horman proudly posed beside his science fair project on tree frogs at Skyline Elementary School in Portland, Oregon. It would mysteriously end up being the last photo ever taken of him. Moments later, Kyron was seen walking down the hallway toward his classroom and then upright vanished somewhere inside the school building. Despite an immediate search of every classroom, closet, and crawl space, no one ever saw him leave. When he didn't return home that afternoon, police launched one of the largest search efforts in Oregon history, combing the surrounding woods and rivers for months. His stepmother, Terry Horman, was the last person to see him alive but was never charged. 15 years later, the boy who disappeared inside his own school has never been found.
Some of my favorite weird celebrity facts. The only reason Fall Out Boy exists is because of Joe Biden. Okay, Pete Wentz's parents met on his Senate campaign in the 70s. Robert Patterson was once kicked out of his elite British private school because he was stealing and then reselling magazines. Christopher Walken used to be a lion tamer. That's badass as hell. Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey might be half-brothers. It's actually theorized by Matthew McConaughey's mom. They haven't gotten a DNA test yet, but their kids call each other like uncles. Benedict Cumberbatch was once kidnapped in South Africa. Okay, he was driving a car with friends when the tire blew out, so they got out, and then these armed men showed up, demanding their money and drugs because they were smoking some weed, and then they tied him up and threw him in the back of a car before just like leaving him on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. Katy Perry grew up in a very strict religious household where she wasn't allowed to eat Lucky Charms because the word luck reminded her mother of Lucifer, and she was also required to call deviled eggs angeled eggs.
Cute animals that are extremely dangerous. First up, you got the slow loris. They may look cute with their large eyes, but you do not want to get near one. If they see you as a threat, they will tuck themselves into their elbows, which is not a good sign. They have venom on their inner arm, which they will put into their mouth before they bite you. Their venom is like cobra venom, so if they do bite you, it's game over. Next up, you've got pandas. They may look cute and cuddly, but don't be fooled. This is a trap. If you annoy one, they will attack you with their sharp teeth and claws. And last up, you've got the pitahui. Yes, it's a cool looking bird, but it's one of the few poisonous birds in the world. Its skin and feathers are covered in a powerful toxin. And just one touch will make your hand go numb.
Her husband accidentally blew her face off with a loaded shotgun. Yes, you heard that right. Michelle was a young mother living in New York, and in 2009, while her husband was handling a loaded shotgun, it discharged accidentally and shot her in the face. And the picture you're seeing behind me is her after multiple surgeries and wearing a prosthetic device. She would eventually be blind in one eye and lose hearing in one of her ears as well, but her face was extremely disfigured, and it was a miracle that she even survived a shotgun blast to the face like this. The prosthetic device that she wears magnetically attaches to her face. Her face is a lot more disfigured than you think. And as unfortunate as it is, none of this was even her fault. She was just at the wrong place at the wrong time and a gun went off. I'm definitely glad she lived from this because she can raise her kids and everything like that and live a normal life. But I mean, the PTSD you must endure after getting shot in the face like that must be horrific. Paramedics said it's a miracle she even survived the drive to the hospital. Like, her middle of her face was just completely gone. Looking at herself for the first time after waking up too, it was like looking at a stranger in a mirror. And then her young daughter was so scared, she hid from her behind a couch at one point when she came home. She couldn't smile, she couldn't do a lot of normal activities, and of course she got stared at a ton by random people because they have no idea what happened to her. She was happy to live a normal life again afterwards, and she said that the hardest thing wasn't surviving the gunshot, it was just living afterwards. You know, the judgments, the stares that she got, it was horrific. In today's day and age, she speaks openly about her trauma, surviving, stuff like that. She is extremely open about all that stuff. you guys want to know more, you should definitely look up Michelle Fox and see any of the commentary she's made, any of the interviews she's done.
Facts that will mess with your perception of time. Martin Luther King and Anne Frank would be the same age if they were alive today, and they still would have been 7 years younger than Betty White was. Queen Elizabeth and Marilyn Monroe would be the same age as well. Here they are meeting each other when they were 30 years old. So George Washington died 25 years before the first dinosaur fossil was found, which means George Washington did not know about the existence of dinosaurs. Woolly mammoth were still walking around the earth 1,000 years after the pyramids were built. Also, Cleopatra was alive closer in time to the moon landings than the building of the Great Pyramid. Tobey Maguire was the same age when No Way Home released as William Dafoe was when the first Spider-Man premiered. Sharks are older than the rings of Saturn by hundreds of millions of years. If you were given $10,000 every day since the pyramids were built, you would only have about 6% of Elon Musk's entire wealth. To give a clearer picture on the difference between a million and a million seconds ago was a little over a week ago, and a billion seconds ago was the year 1990. Harriet Tubman was born in Thomas Jefferson's lifetime and died in Reagan's. Every single atom in your body is billions of years old. And lastly, Oxford University existed hundreds of years before the Aztec Empire was formed. Here are some of the best movies to watch around Halloween. So starting off, if you're in the mood for a fun whodunit slasher, Scream is the ultimate classic. This is a movie that reinvented the slasher genre because it was able to balance meta comedy with some genuinely scary moments. And if you enjoy watching the first one, there's like 6 or 7 of them. Now, if you want something more psychological and darker, A Nightmare on Elm Street is another horror staple. And the third slasher movie I'd recommend is obviously Halloween, which gave us the iconic Michael Myers. If you're not into slashers and want a more recent horror movie, It is one of my favorite. It doesn't even mention Halloween at all, but it just has that vibe. And if you end up liking it, there is a sequel, and they're also coming out with a prequel show. Another recent horror movie that I'd recommend is The Witch. Similar to It, this is also more of a fall movie rather than a Halloween movie, but this movie is very good. Directed by Robert Eggers, it takes place in New England in the 1600s. Now, this next movie I watch every fall because it's a masterpiece, and that is Coraline. This movie is goated. It's stop motion animation, and it is somehow the coziest and the creepiest movie at the same time. Now, if scary movies aren't for you, here are some non-horror recommendations. This time of year, the Harry Potter franchise is always a great watch. One of the best superhero movies to watch around Halloween is The Batman. It fits the Halloween vibe perfect, and it's also one of the best Batman movies. And now, one of my favorite movies of all time, Knives Out. Now, you could easily argue that this is the best whodunit film of all time. It's that good. It's set in peak autumn, which makes it have that cozy fall vibes, and don't worry, it's not scary.
Why is the world losing color? Where did it all go? At first, I thought this was just some dumb meme, people being like,
oh my god, this is how the world looked like when we were kids. But
just turned the saturation up all the way, and I was like, yeah, whatever, this is stupid, the world's not losing color. But then I looked into it, and it actually is, like, statistically, cars, fashion, interior design, even fast food restaurants are all shifting from bright, fun colors to these neutral tones. This study done by the Science Museum Group where they studied over 7,000 different images over time, and they came to find out that browns and yellows are disappearing, everything's being replaced with gray, and the only color actually holding on is blue, and that's because we can't change the color of the sky. I thought it was just some weird coincidence, but there's actual reasons for this shift that's happening. The materials we used have changed. We shifted from using like a lot of wood to just metal, gray, right? And technology, we used to have like colorful buttons and shit, but now everything's just a gray rectangular square. And this whole like minimalistic thing took over. Like, you guys have seen what millennials do to houses. I already hear comments being like, well,
doesn't really matter,
but it does. Colors can affect our entire mood and our behaviors. Bright colors can make us feel energized and focused and happy. What does gray do? And I can already see it being like, well,
hey, so we're in gray and black color, you're being a hypocrite.
I'm aware of that, but I can acknowledge that and also say that we should fight to bring colors back because the world and us and our brains, we deserve it.
The world's most dangerous animals that are alive today. First up, you got the black mamba snake, which grows up to 14 feet in length. And it is also the fastest snake in the world, but who knows how? Because it doesn't have any legs. And one bite from one of these bad boys is enough to kill, yes, guess what? 10 people! And next up, you've got one of the most deadliest animals in the world, which is the mosquito. You're probably wondering how the mosquito could be that deadly. Well, when they suck our blood, they take all types of diseases with them. The flu, typhoid, and hell, even corona. So if you get bitten by one of these, you've got the chance of catching all of that. And last up, you've got the saltwater crocodile, which can grow up to 23 feet and weigh nearly 2,000 pounds. They're extremely skilled swimmers, and if they catch you in the water, they will bite you with a force of up to 3,700 pounds.
TikTokers are having a Halloween war right now, and Natalie Reynolds is winning. So right now, every top TikToker is fighting to have the best Halloween costume video. You got people dressing up like characters from Avatar, Saw, Silent Hill, and basically every top TikToker right now is competing with and failing against Natalie Reynolds for the best costume. TikTok literally banned Natalie to give everyone else a fair chance, and even that couldn't stop this girl. If you go to almost any comment section on any Halloween costume right now, almost everyone will be comparing the costume to whatever Natalie Reynolds' version of that costume is. I think that she may have actually won Halloween this year, guys.
The ending 10 minutes of Welcome to Derry was not real, and it was all just a massive test to see how terrified our main characters were from it. Baby itself is real. It is the new embodiment of it. And as the episode progresses, we see this character get stronger and stronger, because at the beginning of the episode, it looks like a normal infant. And then towards the end of the episode, it does look like the embodiment of the devil. Here's why it wasn't real. Our main characters, these are our main characters throughout this whole entire first season, meaning they can't be unalived. They can progressively be slowly unalived, but these are our main characters. They can't actually all be gone. And if you stayed past the post-credits from the first episode, we see all of our characters are alive and well. We also saw no Pennywise in this episode at all, which I actually loved, because Pennywise is now taking the form of different entities to try and see what he can scare people with. He's saving to be Pennywise. In my opinion, he has to power up. That's the reason he's taking the form of this demon entity baby. Like I said, it looks like this demon baby actually gets stronger as the episode goes on, as the fear gets stronger. Because yeah, Maddie was terrified. I just don't think Maddie was enough fear for him to be able to fully transform into Pennywise. I'm just super excited for episode 2.
He was tricked by his friend to become a woman so that his friend could marry him. 20-year-old Mujahid was from a small village in India, and for almost 2 years he was threatened and harassed by his friend Om Prakash. Om Prakash had been fixated on him and tried to pressure him into a relationship. Mujahid would refuse him, but Om Prakash would follow him, make unwanted advances, and threaten his family if he didn't comply. Mujahid was falsely told by his friend that he had a medical issue that needed hospital inspection, and he believed him. Om Prakash went with him to a medical college, and the staff administered him anesthesia, and he had no idea that a sex change operation was going to be performed on him. Once Mujahid had regained consciousness, he was told by the doctor that he was changed from a boy to a girl. Om Prakash walks into the room with a bouquet of flowers and tells Mujahid that he now has to live with him because no one from his community or family will accept him. He also threatened to shoot Mujahid's father and seize his share of his family's land. Om Prakash had also prepared a lawyer for a court marriage. Once Mujahid gets out of the hospital, he talks to authorities about how his supposed friend tricked him, and now he has woman private parts. It was also revealed that while Mujahid was unconscious, Om Prakash had SA'd him in the hospital. The doctors and staff have been booked under criminal charges, and Om Prakash was also arrested, but there is no current information on how long he will be in jail for.
Natalie Reynolds has been banned from TikTok. I just know Brooke Monk is somewhere celebrating right now. So earlier today, Natalie's account was taken down. Now, it was taken down just 10 minutes after posting a video where she flipped the bird. If you don't know what that is, just ask the comments, but I'm not recreating it. My account needs to be safe. This isn't the first time Natalie has lost her account, and it probably won't be the last. But let's see if she has to start over from the beginning once again this time.
Let's talk about one of the most famous creepypastas of all time that really just started with a disturbing image on the internet. Back in the year 2008, a user by the name Killer Jeff uploaded this image and Jeff the Killer was born. And love him or hate him, Jeff the Killer honestly kind of spawned more love of creepypastas and brought more people to the horror genre. However, the story behind Jeff the Killer is kind of mixed because it's changed over the years. Originally, Jeff the Killer was a Bloody Mary-like entity, and if he said his name 3 times in the mirror, he would pop out and his face would be like right up against yours. The way you get rid of him is by complimenting him. Somehow. Then at one point, the story was written that he was cleaning out his bathroom with a bucket of acid and ended up slipping on a bar of soap and dropping it on his face, going to the hospital. The rest is history. He was never the same again. However, I would argue the most popular and probably well-known story is the one called Go to Sleep. The story starts about with Jeff and his brother Louie moving into a new town, ending up at a birthday party. And to shortly summarize it, at the birthday party, Jeff gets in a fight with these bullies. Bleach and alcohol gets poured on his face, and he gets completely lit on fire. He goes to the hospital, where his appearance is completely different. However, something snapped during the fight with Jeff. And later that night, when he got back home, he decided to burn his eyelids and carve a smile on his face. And after killing his parents and his brother Louie, he goes around stalking anybody who gets in his way, with the final thing that he says is go to sleep. Now, as far as creepypastas, it's fine. It's a cute little ghost story, and especially for being one of the originals, yeah, it gets a little bit of a pass. I find the image to be far more disturbing than the actual, story. Just because ever so often this image will just appear into my brain at night, and like, no thank you. Even though it's not the best story, and yeah, a lot of people think Jeff the Killer is overhyped, it is pretty cool. I'd call him like the Blair Witch Project to creepypastas, but hey, what do you guys think?
This teenager was brutally executed by the cartel, and whatever you do, don't look up the video. The video that I'm about to explain has little to no backstory, but in some groups there's a vague backstory behind it, but I don't know how true it is. The backstory is as follows. Allegedly, the victim in the video is the son of a cartel boss, and the execution was carried out by a rival cartel in order to send a message. Some even claim the video was recorded so it could be sent to the father. What cartel did this disturbing act is a mystery, and nobody knows for sure, and the cartel the victim is related to is also unknown. The video is 2 minutes and 27 seconds long, and the clip is recorded in the middle of the night in a desolate location. As you play the video, you realize that the sound is messed up. You hear the wind in the background, but not the victim talking. The victim can be seen kneeling on the ground, and he looks like a teenager. He seems to have his hands tied behind his back. He's also been badly beaten off camera that one of his eyes had become so bruised that it's swollen shut. A cartel member is standing behind him and is holding the victim's hair, propping his head up to look at the camera. You can see the victim speak, but you can't hear what he is saying. The cartel member stands ominously behind as he carries a combat knife in his hand. The poor teenage victim looks utterly terrified as he sits waiting for his life to end. Then, out of nowhere, 20 seconds into the video, the cartel member violently pulls the victim by the hair, which causes the victim to panic. He then takes the combat knife and begins to cut him on his trachea. Instantly, the victim is pulled to the floor and put on his side. The killer with the blade then cuts through the trachea as the victim grimaces his teeth in pain. Blood begins to stain the ground, and the blade cuts through the victim's windpipe like a hot blade cutting through butter. All of a sudden, you then start to hear a sound, although it's very distorted. I think the person filming on the mobile phone may have had his finger over the microphone. You hear the sounds of labor breathing and the sounds of blood squelching. The sound is cutting in and out, and you also hear a few groans. After a few seconds, the blade is cut through the neck and the victim is almost half decapitated. However, you still see him trying to move, and he continues to grit his teeth in pain. The killer then cuts around the sides and back of his neck, and you can see the white of his spinal cord. It's utterly disturbing, and suddenly the sound gets louder and you hear horrific sounds coming from the victim. The sounds in these videos are always extremely hard to explain, but it almost sounds like violent snoring mixed with the sounds of bubbling blood. When the victim tries to breathe, it sounds like a straw trying to suck up the last drop of a drink. The killer has a tough time cutting through the spinal cord, so he takes the knife and lines the tip of the blade onto the spinal cord, and starts to use the palm of his hand to hammer the knife into the victim's spine. And you hear it crunch as it happens. The killer then takes the blade and begins sawing back and forth on the victim's spine, and this creates a horrible grinding sound. You then start to hear chatter in the background from a few cartel members. However, unlike the majority of cartel videos, the cartel members are quiet and whispering. They are not talking that much, and possibly the horrific nature of the act is extreme for them also, given the age of the victim. The beheading is then complete, and the killer holds up the head to the camera. The lifeless look on the severed head is absolutely haunting as you see blood drip to the ground. The identity of the victim is unknown, as well as his age, but my guess is he is around 14 years old, which makes this case even more shocking. Even the behavior from the cartel members were strange, and they weren't like they are in other videos. This just goes to show the brutal reality of Mexican cartels, and nobody is ever safe, even with your age and status.
He ended his girlfriend's life because she didn't want to have a baby with him.
Man, she just didn't want to have my baby, man, and it was just like a crime of passion or something. Like, she didn't It was like she wasn't trying to have my baby.
You wanted to have a kid.
Yeah.
You wanted to have.
I don't have any children, man.
Okay. You wanted to have a kid with her, and she
just kept on telling me to punch her in the stomach.
22-year-old Jade Alvarez was from San Antonio, Texas, and was a young mom. She was described as funny, loyal, strong, and the kind of girl who always tried to see the best in people. In 2018, she graduated from high school and was raising her 3-year-old son Jeremiah, but talked about going to college. Jade had been unemployed and was experiencing housing insecurity, moving between homes of her family and friends. In March of 2023, Jade's grandmother had requested a welfare check on her. During that visit, she revealed troubling details about her life. She showed officers marks on her neck that she claimed that were from her father choking her. The visible bruises showed a pattern of abuse that unfortunately would continue with the next guy in her life. Despite these challenges, Jade remained hopeful for the future. She had dreams of providing a better life for her son, and she hoped that with starting college soon, she could provide stability for the both of them. During this time, Jade was staying with her best friend Julia Castillo, and this was only meant to be temporary until she figured out her next steps. It was during this time that Jade started dating 23-year-old Adam Bird. Adam presented himself as someone who wanted to settle down and start a family, but beneath that, he was possessive and violent. On the night of April 5th of 2023, Jade was on the phone with Adam talking about a topic that had become increasingly contentious in the relationship, and it was Adam's desire to have a child with Jade. During this phone conversation, Adam asked Jade if she could be dropped off on Capitol Avenue in the Beacon Hill neighborhood of San Antonio sometime between 10:30 to 11 p.m. Jade was dropped off, and as the two met, an argument quickly started over Adam wanting a baby and Jade not ready to have another one. But Adam wasn't going to let this slide. What Jade didn't know was that Adam had a gun hidden in the pocket of his hoodie. And this was the same gun that Adam had used to rob a store just days earlier. Without warning, Adam took out the gun and shot Jade as he walked past her. Jade was struck in the abdomen, she fell to the ground, she was wounded but not yet dead. Instead of Adam calling for help or fleeing the scene, he shoots her twice in the back of the head to ensure that she wouldn't survive. Adam wanted to make sure that if Jade didn't want to start a family with him, then she shouldn't have the opportunity to build any kind of future. He then fled the scene and left Jade's body next to her suitcase on the ground. He made sure to take her purse with him so that there would be no identification, and when police were trying to identify her body, it would take longer and he would have more time to escape. On April 6 around 6:30 a.m., the San Antonio Police Department conducted a routine patrol when they spotted something unusual. From a distance, it looked like a pile of belongings, but once they got closer, they realized it wasn't just an abandoned suitcase, it was a young woman's body lying next to it. The officer immediately called for help, but it was clear that no medical intervention could help. Since there was no witnesses at the immediate crime scene, detectives started knocking on the doors of nearby residents. They wanted to see if they had heard anything, and a few ended up coming forward that they did hear a single gunshot, followed by a woman's scream, and then a couple more gunshots, but never called it in. Once detectives identified Jade's body through fingerprints, they went to where Julia lived, which would be Jade's last home. Julia's mom answered the door and immediately denied knowing anything about Jade living there. Detectives reached Julia by phone, and her response was highly unusual. She refused to speak to investigators, claiming that she needed to contact her attorney first, which was weird because they weren't accusing her of anything, they just wanted to see if she had any more information. Since Julia didn't want to speak to investigators, they were able to contact another woman who Jade knew, and she claimed that Jade was with Adam that night. Once investigators looked up his name through the system, they saw that he had an active warrant for 2 counts of aggravated robbery just 5 days before Jade's murder. And because of this, Adam was made the prime suspect in the homicide investigation. On April 12th, just 6 days after Jade's body was found, Adam was arrested on his robbery warrant. They were interviewing him about the robbery, and he was reluctant to talk about Jade. But then he ended up confessing that he used the same weapon to unalive Jade. Over the course of the next several hours, Adam revealed that he met up with Jade to talk about having a baby, and when she told him no, he became enraged. Adam then shot Jade multiple times to make sure that she didn't suffer. Adam ended up confessing because he just wanted it to be all over. He didn't show any real remorse, he just wanted to be finished with the interrogation. In March of 2025, Adam pled guilty, took a plea deal, and was sentenced to 40 years in prison.